In this episode of The Full Nerd, AMD Scott Herkelman and Radeon 7. Welcome to The Full Nerd, a very special edition because we have none other than Scott Herkelman of AMD. He has been around in the industry for a long time. Wait till the end, folks. I did not know this about Scott. He was a pro gamer. So, like, if you think apparently he was a real pro gamer, I want to hear a story about it. It's crazy. But the real star of the show, AMD Radeon 7 or VII. Or it's like the Super Bowl. I don't know what that is. Luckily, the low numbers I can get.
I also don't know what Super Bowl number is.
LII. I don't know what that is.
I have no idea.
What is that?
By the way, thank you for inviting me on here, and I'm excited to show your audience what we've come up with. So it's great.
This is, of course, now I've been wanting to ask somebody at AMD this, but I think about 3 days after the launch or reveal, I was like, wait a minute, Radeon VII, that's Vega 2, right? That was like your internal kind of like making fun of everybody.
I don't know about making fun of everyone.
Well,
but what I would say, it does have a couple different meanings. It's our second generation Vega architecture, and it's on the 7 nanometer process. So if you think about how we wanted to name it, VII stands for both second generation Vega and 7 nanometer.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Yeah.
Nice.
So much symbolism there, but usually product names don't get that much symbolism, but there's a lot there. I'm going to unbox it.
You should unbox it. Absolutely. I would love to have you unbox it.
So folks, this is the reviewer's kit that people are going to get for the hardware they review. This is not a retail part, but I'm sure if you want to pay extra money, AMD might sell it to you.
We should consider that.
Consider that, and also consider this is being recorded before the actual performance embargoes lift. Brad will be doing all that magical stuff. We can't tell you what the time spy is going to be, but we can talk a little bit about it. So
yeah, that'll be February 7th, by the way. That's when the product launches, and all the performance reviews will be out. So look forward then.
Okay. So I love the tchotchkes. Now this is beautiful. This is. Let's turn around.
Let me help you out with this here.
Can we see this? So this is a pedestal for your. So actually, you should sell this, I think, because then your real fans will buy one for their system and then another one just to put on the pedestal.
Yeah,
right?
I think they can look at it while they're gaming and
then this is
their opponents.
Oh yeah, and this is an actual die, right?
Yeah, that's actual die. So that's the Radeon 7 die that you see there.
Can I pry that out and put that in a card at home?
Well, I don't think it'll work, but you can try. There's a lot of people, by the way, that put GPUs in ovens and do crazy things with them. So you can always try.
Yeah, I always like that. Well, you could have just put it in the oven and reflow the solder. So it's like, I think it should not have done that in the first place. I will just use my warranty. But
that's why I love the community, by the way. They're very innovative, and they think of different things to do and how to solve problems. And it's just,
I agree.
Community.
It's a lifesaver for when you're out of warranty, but products should not just poof. But again, so we have Radeon 7. I'm sure everybody saw this at CES.
Yeah, for the audio listeners, why don't you tell them what we're looking at?
Yeah, we're looking at the retail card. It's got a 3-fan,
3-axial fans. That's right.
3-axial fan, a nice anodized silver shroud backplate.
It's really pretty.
That's right. So it has 3,840 cores, 16 gigs of HBM2, second generation HBM2, and 1 terabyte of memory per second bandwidth. And so, for us, our investment into this product was to make sure gamers can actually use the card right away with all the games that they play or the creation workloads that they use. And so we put our money into memory for this generation of cards to ensure the broad use cases across the platform. So
okay. I mean, that is, of course, the big question I think everybody on Reddit and forums and everybody wants to ask is like, well, this is $699, folks, for 16 gigs of HBM2, which is not cheap memory. Why didn't you make an 8 gig version and sell it to me for $299? I mean, that's what people.
$299. That would be pretty tough.
Yeah.
But we really wanted to put a lot of memory on this card, and the architecture for Vega, the second generation Vega, really does well with 16, and the next point it does really well with is 32. Bringing it down to 8, it does reduce the memory bandwidth, and as we took a look at application performance, we thought the optimal point was right there with 16.
Okay.
And then we also wanted to make sure that in this high end of the market, when we survey it, we know it's not just gamers, it's creators, people who use Adobe and Blender and DaVinci Resolve. And so that sweet spot for us on that second generation Vega architecture was 16.
Okay, and that of course, HBM2, for people to know, it's a stacked memory design. You have these TSVs, wires that actually go through the memory, right? And then, so I mean, if you were to go fewer stacks, you would essentially cut your memory interface in half.
That's right. That's right. You would get less performance and memory bandwidth than on a relative scale. So you would actually lose a lot more than you would gain by going down to 8. And then the price point would still not be that attractive. And so we believe the optimum portion of the market would be 16 gigs for that price point. So that's where we're at right now today.
Okay.
We'll always evaluate everything else out in the future, but we believe this is going to be a well-positioned product.
And for power, we have 2 8-pins.
300 watt board power. That's right. So, when we took a look at the board and the power, we wanted to make sure that people have the ability to play their play with their GPU with the current supplies, PSUs that are out there, power supplies, but also, have the ability to overclock when it launches. And we're excited to see what people can do with it.
Okay. So, but I mean, that you don't, people see 2 8-pins, they think, wow, that's a lot of power. It doesn't necessarily need it. It's just for the overclocking.
Yeah, it's there to give the best performance on the cores and the memory. But if you don't need it, you don't necessarily always have to push it right to the limit. There are some applications that don't require to use all the way up to the full board power. Yeah.
Of course, performance, again, folks, we can't talk exact numbers yet, but we're going to try to get Scott to give us a hint. I think Lisa at CES said, we're going to fight. It's definitely priced to fight with the RTX 2080. Will it actually fight in performance with that 2080?
Yeah, look, again, more reviews will come out February 7th. I'm excited for everyone to get their hands on it. We believe this is a good fighter. We will win some, we will tie, we will lose some, but I think overall we're there in the competitive space in the enthusiast market for the first time in a long time with their solid product offering. So from a gaming perspective, win some, lose some. Just to be transparent, make sure everybody knows that we see the full suite of games before launch. We know where we're at. We also know where our competitors are at. And then the thing that we're really offering with this is the creative workloads. I think that we will provide a tremendous amount of compute capability for those people who create and game at the same time. Honestly, I didn't pay too close attention to the compute side because that's a professional end, but what kind of a performance bump can we expect to see over, say, a RX 590? Oh, well, over a Vega 64, even just our last generation, and things like Adobe or Blender, we see up to 27% roughly in certain workloads. And we also see on DaVinci Resolve 15, about 27%. And OpenCL or compute benchmarks like Luxmark, we've seen, over 50%.
Wow.
And so, for us, it's continuing to be important to ensure that our GPUs, because a lot of people in the creation space, they can't afford the $3,000 workstation GPUs or the $10,000
you still sell
data
those,
center.
Though.
We still sell them, but those are for like a commercial audience. But there's all these small mom and pops or just small studios that want to do creative workloads and want a game, but they can't afford those expensive GPUs. So for us, you will continue to see us in the gaming space produce drivers that are optimized as much as possible for the creative workloads while giving them the benefit in that performance. And so that's why you see us positioning this card to talk to that audience and make sure that they understand our performance for the Radeon 7 really suits those needs that maybe are on a tighter budget, but really we need that really good performance that they would expect out of a gaming GPU.
Okay. I mean, definitely pro market, they can always use more performance. I do want to ask, since I got you here, I don't have too much time, but we're gonna go till we run out of time, folks. 7 nanometer. What do you get out of it?
Yeah, for us, for this particular architecture, we really were able to zone in on the clock speeds. And so you see a nice boost in clock speeds for us. Of course, it's a smaller die. So that enabled us to put 16 gigabytes of HBM2 right next to the die. And that was a really nice benefit for all of our users, will be a nice benefit for all of our users. So we did make some other structural enhancements. We'll talk about it at a later time, I think, as we get closer to launch or right on launch day. Okay. But for us, the two major points were putting more memory next to the die in a smaller package, as well as, zeroing in on better clock speeds. Okay. So definitely, and again, I don't know what the performance is, but I have high expectations. A significant jump going from, 16, 15, 14 down to
7 nanometers, right? It's
the industry is definitely slowed down a little bit over the past few years. But if you look at the bets we made a couple of years ago for 7 nanometer, the engineering teams at AMD and Mark and the team in the CTO office, they really did a great job positioning as well to be the first 7 nanometer gaming GPU in the world, and that's what we're taking advantage of this year. And of course, the rest of this year there'll be even more things that we can talk about.
That's the facts. The audience, that is a code word for Navi. I'm going to ask you because a lot of people, there are maybe not realistic expectations, but a lot of people are like, oh, we're going to see Navi at CES. We're going to see Navi at CES. I'm going to ask Scott this question. He will not tell us the answer to this question, but I will ask because I know you want to know. When's Navi coming? What configurations and how much will it cost, Scott? Tell me exactly now.
I also want to know when Half-Life 3 is going to launch. No, but
he just confirmed Half-Life 3.
I did not. But I would say that we're excited about Navi. I can't talk about it. Okay. Thank you for asking. I read Reddit and a lot of people's forums every day, and that's the number one question for sure. We will make sure that everybody, when we're ready to talk about it, is well aware of what it's going to be.
So you don't talk about your next generation product months ahead of time? Apparently
not normally.
That's not a normal strategy.
And I think my PR team would not let me do that anyway. So
not to mention, there's actually PR saying, awesome, nice people. I love them. Awesome people. They're standing there. And if in fact there's like suddenly you see a shift, it's because Scott says something wrong and we have to cut it before the lawyers jump in.
Yeah, sure. No, but we are excited for it. It's 2019. It's coming.
Definitely going to be this year. So that's now Navi and I was going to say Ryzen, Radeon 7. We're going to see the benchmarks just in a few days. But yeah, let's look at next generation things. Ray tracing is.
Yeah, let's talk about ray tracing. First of all, ray tracing has been around for a very long time. It's been doing it. You can do ray tracing on every GPU today. Actually, you can run ray tracing on every GPU. The performance hit is significant. In the professional space, ray tracing has been used significantly because it helps people, make sure that their applications have the right lighting and effects. And I think that from Microsoft's announcement about DXR, we're totally on board. We're extremely excited about that. Our position is it's pretty early for ray tracing in the consumer gaming space. And I think you could even say that the game developers would mostly agree because there's very few games out today, maybe just one that's consistently supporting it. I think over time, as our GPU horsepower increases, as the industry adopts DXR and that is further distributed among the gaming communities in terms of the developers, and they adopt that and they figure out how to code it and how they can implement it in their games, and they get the widest adoption of that. We'll be there top to bottom. Our goal is to produce products that can run ray tracing well without a performance hit top to bottom, and when that happens, I think that's when the ray tracing will become much more important to the community.
Okay. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Actually, the problem with not doing it live is you can lose your train of thought. When you're doing it live, you have no choice. You're on that high wire act. But what the heck was I going to ask? I was going to ask about ray tracing. It's just not coming out of my brain now. It has been a crazy week. You will see what happens soon, and you will understand why. God, what the heck was I going to ask?
It's like a reboot.
Sorry, I had to reboot there. So I wanted to ask. So you're saying clearly, because a lot of people are hating on ray tracing right now. I'm actually surprised by people that are just the negative reaction, including, people dyed in green. NVIDIA supporters are like, oh my God, they're so angry. It feels like this isn't just sort of the red team. This is also some green team members are like, not ready yet. You're saying you would not buy a ray tracing card right now?
No, I don't think it's worth the investment right now. And the reason for that is I believe the industry will change quite a bit over the next couple of years. I think the gaming community at large, not only gamers that buy their products, but the people behind games and the people behind platforms, we want to make sure that there's a standard that everybody can use and use well. Gamers can get ray tracing enabled games and see the beauty and be able to experience it in a way that everybody can enjoy, not just one specific platform, not just one specific technology. And I think that's the point where in time that gamers will appreciate ray tracing a lot more. I'm a big fan of ray tracing. I think it really enables developers to do lighting faster. It saves them a significant amount of time, actually, because right now they hand place all the lights, right? And if we do ray tracing properly and it's an open standard like Microsoft is pushing, I think that there will be more adoption among game developers, and you'll see hardware companies like ourselves feel much more inclined top to bottom to make sure that our hardware's aligned with that open standard.
What about the future-proofing argument? Like, hey, I think it's going to be awesome when the games come out for this. I want to be ready, so I'm buying it now.
Yeah, well,
what's your argument against that?
I think future-proofing is always okay.
Okay.
It's always like more memory, 16 gigs of memory. That's like, that's an easy one because you can realize that every application immediately takes advantage of more memory if it needs it. But a specific proprietary code to do ray tracing that then you have to go and work game developer by game developer, and it might not necessarily work with our products or other products. It's a little hard to push off as a major initiative for the gaming community at large, because then now people have to worry about two different standards. They have to worry about two different implementations. And our preference is let's use the industry standard DXR. And when games are there to support it, let's make sure that AMD Radeon is there to support it with our GPU lineup top to bottom and give gamers the best solution that they can without charging crazy prices.
Okay. Of course, the proprietary part is a DLSS part of the.
That is one, yes. Okay. Yes.
Isn't it
one of many?
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, I still want to talk about GPU stuff, but I was going to shift to something that's radioactive. Should I ask it now?
Well, by the way, we could talk about DLSS. DLSS is actually a really interesting technology. But again, it's one of those things that's game by game dependent. And then you got to downscale to upscale. And, our view is there's a lot of great technologies in games today that can make your image better. And our goal is to produce a better performing GPU. So that way we don't have to downscale then upscale to get, better performance. It's just a funky way to do it. And then the game developers, you would have to go in and do a lot of work for them, and then they would have to be bite off on it, and it's game by game. And that's why I think you see this initiative in the industry that it's like there's only one game that supports ray tracing and maybe a handful that support DLSS. And then, if you're a gamer, you're like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that it's never going to come, or will it come eventually? We would rather just cut all that noise out and just say, hey, let's produce the best performing GPU, and when ray tracing's ready, let's make sure we're there. So instead, let's invest in other things that gamers can take immediately advantage of, which is like memory or even bandwidth or maybe not bandwidth, but cooling. And so there's a lot of different things that we'd like to place our investments in.
Okay. Bandwidth meaning memory bandwidth. I mean,
right.
You do have a crazy amount of memory bandwidth. This card, the big announcement at CES was, new Ryzen's going to have PCIe 4. This card is PCIe 3.
That's right.
Should people care?
I don't think at this point in time they should care. The ecosystem is not ready for it yet. I think that we'll have more to say about PCIe Gen 4 later. But I would say that, of course, that does matter out in time. But I think right now the ecosystem's a little early, and that's why we chose PCIe Gen 3.
Okay. And, I know we've all lived it through it, PCIe 1 to 2 to 3. We're still pretty far from saturating PCIe, right? I mean,
for GPUs, yeah.
For GPUs.
I mean, there's maybe some outliers in some cases, but I think overall we're pretty far from that now. I think there's other use cases that you could see it being saturated, whether that's CPU or else. But I think in general, we feel pretty comfortable with where we're at with PCIe Gen 3 on Radeon 7.
Okay. We didn't talk about the ports on here because I'm going to use that in an interesting segue just so you can see, folks. This is, we have HDMI and 3 display ports.
Yes.
Right? I mean, actually, we'll give you a little bit of a close-up on the card here. It's quite beautiful. The one at the show was a little beat up by... There's nothing like touching something that 500 other journalists have touched. So it was pretty gross.
Hand sanitizer. I suggest hand sanitizer.
Oh, God, yeah. You should have like Spider-Man shooters on your hands. So, of course, you have your display port.
Yes.
And this supports an open... adaptive variable refresh rate called FreeSync.
That's right.
What do you think about your competitors now also supporting FreeSync? And a lot of, shade they're throwing your way.
You mean Adaptive Sync, Gordon?
Adaptive Sync. Hey, look, Adaptive Sync is an industry standard. and maybe very few people know this, but I was at NVIDIA when we launched G-Sync. And I think the great news about NVIDIA coming to support the Adaptive Sync standard is that it's just good news for gamers. Let's do away with proprietary standards. It's really hard. If you're a gamer, you ask them, hey, which monitor and how do you choose? And they see different standards. It becomes like the old VHS and beta situation that we had a long time ago, for those of us old enough to know that. And
you just dated us.
anytime that happens, it just creates confusion. So my first reaction is, thank God, because it's going to be easier to sell the solution. It's better for gamers anyway. And eventually we'll get to a place that I believe that gamers just want to get a great display, get the GPU frame by frame to the monitor on the exact time it needs to get there. And now that they're supporting it, although I would say it's overdue, I'm happy.
Do you think though, like because originally I was like, wow, this is a big deal because it looks like they're embracing it, but there was definitely some checking of FreeSync there by NVIDIA, and Jensen, of course, went ballistic. I tried to make Scott say mean things. He won't say mean things.
No,
He's not going to say mean things. But then also just talking to their team, they really still believe G-Sync is going to be the standard to go for, the future, the premium product. And do you, from the AMD perspective, really seeing G-Sync and FreeSync kind of surviving?
I would actually, there's been quite a few tweets about this from the reviewer community. And one thing I would say is don't listen to somebody like me who has a vested interest in a position. There's been thousands of monitor reviews on FreeSync versus G-Sync. Just go read those.
Okay.
And if my competitor's position is, I don't know what he said verbatim. I don't want to say it.
Well, does it work?
Actually, I know what he said, but
does it work? Does it work?
Absolutely works.
So you've seen it actually work then?
Of course,
so,
of course. But what I would say is, don't trust me. Just go read all the reviewers. I mean, there's thousands of reviews on FreeSync, so I'm not sure how anybody can say it doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I just kind of wonder, knowing monitor makers, there's still a premium. There's still validation. There's still these hoops you got to jump through, and it's not a great business to be in as far as margin. So it just feels like that's just going to get long term. 5 years from now, G-Sync isn't going to get. It just feels like small. I mean, beta versus VHS. No, for younger folks, that's VHS iPhone case versus beta iPhone case. Okay, that's how you understand it. But I mean, really, is there room HD DVD versus Blu-ray? Is there room for two standards?
I don't think so. Actually, if you think about just the markets in general, specifically around the PC, two different standards rarely works.
Yeah.
And our view has always been from day one, open, right? We want people to develop beautiful products, beautiful technologies, applications, and do it fast, innovate, keep pushing the industry forward. I believe when there's two different standards, it slows everything down. And it confuses people. They don't know what to buy into. And then if you buy a G-Sync monitor, you're stuck in that ecosystem forever. And maybe you don't want to be stuck in that ecosystem forever. And so there's innovation beyond standards. And when you have an open standard, you can create fast innovation quickly. And so innovations like either monitor technology or proprietary gaming technology, I believe, on behalf of the gaming community, slows everything down, because then people have to make a choice. Game developers have to make a choice. Monitor vendors have to make a choice. Why not just have one open standard where we can just push everything forward and make the most immersive game experience possible?
Okay. And then, there's a lot of FreeSync monitors out there. So
there are a lot. 550, by the way.
I heard only 12 of them work, though.
I revert back to my earlier statement, Gordon. You just asked the reviewer community. I think you're one.
Okay. So, he's being nice, but yeah.
I'm trying to be as nice as possible.
It is hard to see long-term 10 years from now, which is, that's forever. That's like 100 years. 5 years from now, it'll be interesting to see,
Yeah, I think I think the monitor community overwhelmingly has chosen FreeSync because they realize that they can deliver better value to the gamer without having to pay for a technology that costs them a couple $100 extra, maybe $100 extra to put in there that doesn't really add a lot of value. And so I think that overall, by the way, the gaming monitors is a growing industry, and the margins are good for those monitor partners. So I think that their whole point is, how do we make a better gaming experience? And going along an open standards route for them is the easiest way to do that.
Okay.
Yep.
I have other list of questions I want to get to before I forget. I'm going to ask, you probably can't answer, but when will PlayStation 5 come out? Which graphics chip will be it? Also, when will the next generation Xbox come out? And which AMD graphics part will be in there? You're going to ask it. You want me to ask it? I asked it.
I know my boss is watching. No comment. Nope.
KB Lake G, you going to sell Intel more graphics parts?
We still enjoy a relationship, a semi-custom relationship with them. So if they want to continue down that path, that's their choice.
Okay.
That's their choice.
Actually, speaking of Intel, because that is the 900-pound gorilla elephant in the room. What are your thoughts? I mean, we've got a third player here. Is there anything you want to say to Raja? You just want to
Raja.
bring it on, Raja.
No, actually,
good luck. i740.
I enjoy Raja very much. We're good friends. I think it's an interesting endeavor they're taking. They by the way, they are the world's biggest producer of graphics technology, if you include their integrated.
If you count it,
if you can game on their integrated. And I think that for me, having a potential third player is one of those statements that time will tell. It's hard to produce a great GPU across many different vertices and verticals and platforms that will work. And so I think that we'll see what they can come up with, but time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like it's a pretty tall order because, of course, we don't know what they've been working on internally, but it feels like they got to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour because they're running with AMD and NVIDIA, who have been just you know.
We never count out our competition. I think, one of the things that we always look at is how do we execute to our plans? And let's just stick to that. And let's make sure that we have a strong plan and focus on ourselves. Our competition will do what our competition does. One thing that I love about this industry, there's never a dull moment. And so for us, it's, okay, given the chaos of the industry, how do we focus on ourselves and just produce the best products we can?
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking, let's see. Gaming PC. I did ask the console question, which I had to ask because people are going to want to hear. But PC gaming, you mentioned something very earlier that that PC gaming is like the thing.
Oh, GDC. Yeah. So there's a GDC is about just around the corner. It's coming out soon. And there's a really great survey that I've read recently that the majority of game developers are still and plan on still gaming for the PC first, or are working on games now. High majority, over 60%. And so what I love about that stat is that, as you look at these next couple of years, people always wonder, are games still coming out on the PC? No, it's super important for game developers. It's a great platform. It's an open platform. Of course, they need to make money doing it, but the community around PC gaming is always so vibrant that it's just one of those things that they continue to look forward to. So I think the survey said something like over 60% are still planning on or working on today PC games. And I think number 2 was mobile, and then number 3 was console right behind it.
Wow.
So
okay.
It's still my favorite community is PC. And I know that hearing that and reading those statistics, it seems like the game developers are still really excited about the PCs.
Wow, interesting. Great. So PC, number 1. Number 2, phones, not tablets, phones. And number 3 is console. Hear that, Elena? Number 3, console.
Maybe just now. I think, console's always a point in time.
It's always a point. Yeah, it's interesting. Consoles are, the whole console game is really kind of changed up too. So, oh, gosh. Oh, how much time do we have? Oh, we got just a few more minutes. I want to hear, I've been saving this for last, I want to hear your Quake. I want to hear your Ferrari story. Now, this is crazy. This is their Ferrari story.
Yeah, well, it's not my Ferrari story.
You're right. It wasn't yours. I'm sorry.
I didn't win it. So when I was in college, I spent a lot of time playing Quake. And I thought I was pretty good. I would maybe spend a couple hours a day playing, and I thought I was a pro gamer.
Just a couple hours a day?
Okay, I'm exaggerating. More like 10. I would win regional tournaments, and I would do pretty well. And then down in Texas, I ran into a small guy named Vitality.
Well, hold on. Future Gordon here chiming in. Scott and I misremember this. We thought we were younger than we actually are. It wasn't Fatality. It was Dennis Fong. Yes, Thresh, the man himself. So every time he says Fatality, think Thresh. So back to our show.
Probably doesn't remember me, but I remember him. And it was one of the early round brackets, but that was during the tournament for it at the time was giving away a Ferrari. And so when I ran into him, I was doing well. I actually did pretty well. And then I learned that I'm not a very good gamer. He blanked me 20-0, 20-0, 20-0. And then I flew back home and began studying harder because I realized that there's some people that are ungodly good at games, and there's some people like me who are just pretenders, I guess. So, but I think that was the tournament where they were giving away the Ferrari, and I think he was too young to drive it away, so he had to have his parents or somebody come pick it up.
Wow.
And take that out. But yeah, that's when I learned that I love gaming, but I'm not maybe necessarily as good as I thought I was.
I can't imagine the hand-eye coordination on like the top players in the world.
You know what I learned?
Just
What I learned, he was, if you look back at what he was really good at, is he just knows the maps extremely well. The sounds, the maps, he can run through them backwards with his eyes closed. I did not. I was just trying to, run around and shoot. And I learned that's just a different league of investment of time and research into those games. And if you look at esports today, those guys are practicing crazy amounts of time, 16 to 18 hours a day. And boot camps, and they're traveling around the world. It's just a phenomenal time to be in PC gaming, and a phenomenal time to be in the industry to help support those and raise up that community to keep giving them money and promoting the industry that I love.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's amazing where the PC is today. So, and of course you got Radeon 7, which is going to be good for, I just want to give the chance for Scott to talk about his Radeon 7 here?
Yeah, well, for Radeon 7 for us, I'm extremely excited. We're back in the enthusiast space. We have a very competitive product. And if you are also a creative person looking for a GPU to help you with your workloads and you game, this is by far the best GPU for you. So it's $699 starting on February 7th from AMD. And I'm super excited to see all the reviews come out and have gamers start playing with it.
Okay. And there will be plenty of availability. It won't be like Bitcoin mining crazy days.
No. And, that's the other thing is the community gave us a lot of feedback. During that time frame, the price points were a little out of whack for a lot of people. And so that's why you see us having some availability on AMD.com, because if that ever comes back, we want to be ready to make sure the gamers can get our GPUs at a good price.
Okay. So direct sales, that's the reason why. So make sure people can get them. Okay.
That's
cool.
Right. Yeah, very good.
Outstanding. Again, come back February 7th. Let's see what everybody thinks. Don't take his word for it, but he seems pretty confident to me. So, and we know it works with FreeSync. So come back and check it out.
That's right. Thanks, Gordon. I appreciate the time today, and thanks for letting me show your audience the unboxing. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Scott, for coming by. For more information on cool PC stuff and how awesome the PC is, come back to The Full Nerd. We are going to check you out soon.